When someone wants to play a virtual game of NBA basketball, what game do they play? Do friends ask each other to come over and play live, or come over and play 2K? If you caught a friend playing NBA Live, you'd probably make fun of them. Your first question to them would probably be, why? It wasn't always this way, however. When Electronic Arts released NBA Playoffs in 1989, they created one of the most successful franchises in the history of video games. Later called NBA Showdown, and in 1994 dubbed NBA Live, the series was once the NBA game of choice. It was the most well-received, most popular, and most iconic basketball video game of its time. Somewhere along the way, however, something changed. Greed and corruption got in the way. Ironically, Live's best shot at returning is to capitalize on its competitors' greed and corruption. But it's likely too little, far too late. NBA Live fell victim to stagnation and a lack of innovation. After being the top dog for so long, EA stopped trying. This led to sales dropping, fans leaving, and eventually, of course, desperation. Rebranding to save face, only to have it backfire so hard that they unrebranded. Hiatus after hiatus, false promises. The few fans they had left became alienated. The new fans who came to try something new left quickly. Loyalty was punished. Pain and misery were all that remained. NBA Live was really good. In fact, great. But it didn't last. Electronic Arts failed to understand that the bar keeps rising. With new technology comes new expectations. Sometimes, when competition rises, it brings out your best. Oftentimes, however, it doesn't. And then you lose. This is the story of how NBA Live lost.
Thanks to Raycon for sponsoring today's video. Unlike other wireless headphones, Raycon earbuds fit in my ears perfectly. I work out in them, go for runs in them, wear them while shopping. Man, I wear these all the time. What's great is that they start at half the price of any other premium wireless earbuds on the market, and they sound just as good. Their latest model, the E25, is their best one yet. It has 6 hours of playtime, seamless Bluetooth pairing, more bass, and a compact design that provides noise isolating capabilities. They also come in many different colors to fit your style. Raycon was founded by Ray J, and you see celebrities like Snoop Dogg and J.R. Smith rocking these bad boys. Click the link in the description box below to go to buyraycon.com/softdrinktv and get 15% off your order. And once again, thank you to Raycon for sponsoring this video. In 1989, EA Sports released a basketball game titled Lakers vs. Celtics in the NBA Playoffs. A year after releasing their first football video game, John Madden Football, EA was looking to expand into other sports. Thanks to the early success of Madden, the NBA and EA partnered together to release the first officially endorsed NBA video game featuring real NBA teams and players. The game included stars such as Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, and Patrick Ewing, just to name a few. The first NBA playoffs game was a huge success, and despite some criticism for lacking difficulty, the game was a critical success as well. This was the first EA game to feature the EA Sports Network logo, which would eventually become EA Sports, and also the first basketball game to feature signature animations, including Charles Barkley's signature dunk. Featuring 8 teams, 4 in each conference, and having a TV-style broadcast with commentary, a halftime show, and even showing lineups prior to the opening tip, the game was the start of something huge. The next game in the series, Bulls vs. Lakers in the NBA playoffs, was more or less the same. However, it introduced the instant replay feature and was also the first basketball game to feature NBA team logos on the court. After a few more releases including Team USA Basketball and Bulls vs. Blazers, NBA playoffs rebranded to NBA Showdown in 1993. Featuring every single NBA team at the time, Showdown was a huge step forward. Instead of saying Electronic Arts on the packaging, it said EA Sports for the first time. It was also the last game to include Michael Jordan until NBA Live 2000. And then, in 1994, NBA Live was born. EA moved development duties from San Mateo, where the NBA playoff games were developed, to Vancouver, and NBA Live took off. NBA Live 95 innovated in many different areas, including features such as Create a Team and an all-new isometric camera perspective, which EA borrowed from FIFA. This game was iconic, garnering praise from nearly every media outlet and helping EA dominate the sports video game market. Live 96 continued building on the strong foundation of the series by adding a Create a Player feature, allowing users to input themselves into the game or create fictional characters. Once again, thanks to improvements in FIFA, EA borrowed from the soccer game once again to provide the ability to change the camera angle for multiple different options. Graphics also took a big step forward, as NBA Live 96 was the first live game to release on the PlayStation. While players remained 2D sprites, courts were rendered in 3D. The game was praised heavily for the introduction of Create a Player as well as the all-new post-up move. NBA Live did have some competition back then, most notably from the 3DO game Slam and Jam. But Live was a superior game, innovating further than its competition. Every year EA Sports brought something new to the table. While Live didn't have the best graphics at the time, it was the most polished and complete basketball game. Live took a big step forward with NBA Live 97, which included revamped graphics. Player models were now rendered in 3D, and animations were motion captured from real NBA players. Kobe Bryant made his video game debut in Live 97, and the game once again received critical acclaim. Live 98 improved upon the game with new player models and faces based off of photographs of the players, along with a new passing system that is commonplace today, where you simply push a pass button and the game passes to the closest teammate. The game added some new game modes that changed the series forever, including a GM mode that allowed players to run a team by drafting players, and the 3-point shootout was a fully playable game mode that could be played split screen with friends or by yourself. This was the most successful NBA Live game at the time, selling more copies than any other EA Sports basketball game before. NBA Live was getting really good. NBA Live 99 added a practice mode and another new mode similar to 98's GM mode, where users could run a team for multiple seasons and their players would develop over time. This mode was the predecessor to franchise mode. While many of these features seem like obvious additions that we might take for granted in today's basketball games, they all came from somewhere, and that somewhere was NBA Live. The series was improving at an exponential rate, and without it, basketball video games would be nowhere close to where they are today. NBA Live 2000 introduced legendary players and brought Michael Jordan back into the game. It also added a one-on-one mode. Many longtime NBA Live fans consider Live 2000 to be one of the greatest entries in the series' history, with some even calling it the greatest Live ever. Live 2001 was a step forward and 2 steps back for the series. This was the first NBA Live game on the PlayStation 2, and the graphics took a huge step forward, but there were some issues. There was no longer a franchise mode or the 3-point contest. While the game was technically impressive, many were let down by the lack of depth. The game also had some oversights, such as a lack of a 5-second rule. NBA Live 2002 was similar and didn't fix many of the issues in Live 01. The series was starting to stagnate, and games like NBA 2K were improving and giving people pause before buying NBA Live. The game did bring franchise mode back, and it was deeper than ever, but the gameplay was still very flawed. The NBA had recently abolished the illegal defense call, allowing teams to run a zone defense as often as they wanted. This was a huge change for the sport, but in NBA Live 2002, you couldn't even run a zone defense. The game did fix the 5 and 3-second rule oversight from Live 01, but the game lacked a technical foul penalty, meaning there was not much of a punishment for committing these rule violations. The game wasn't without its pros, however, with new realistic dunk animations allowing players to body one another. The new franchise mode was deeper than anything competitors could offer at the time. Live, however, was no longer easily the top game. Other games were getting closer, and Live needed to make some big changes to keep their market share. Luckily for the series, EA Sports completely revamped NBA Live 2003, releasing an amazing game. Thanks to the introduction of the freestyle control system and taking the franchise back to its roots with a fun arcade-style gameplay. The gameplay was still mostly realistic, don't get me wrong, but it pushed fluidity and fun over complete simulation. An interesting note with this game is that the soundtrack went platinum, the first ever video game soundtrack to do so. NBA 2K3's franchise mode had surpassed Live's at this point, but it didn't matter. Live's gameplay was more fun and easier to pick up and play. The game appealed to the masses and was simply more popular. Live was faster, more fluid, and just felt natural to play. NBA Live 2004 featuring Vince Carter on the cover was one of the greatest entries in NBA Live's history. NBA Live 04 took some of the criticisms of Live 03, most notably by those claiming it was too arcadey and not realistic enough, and addressed them. Live 04 had a slower pace than 03, but maintained the same level of fun and pickup and playability. Player animations were overhauled, resulting in a game that looked more lifelike than ever before. In order to make the game even more immersive, players had real-life shoes in the game, featuring all the major brands. The game had an NBA store where you could use in-game earned credits to buy classic jerseys, shoes, and more. The game was great and sold very well. Some people might have argued that NBA 2K or NBA Inside Drive were better games, but at the time, Live was easily the most popular NBA game. However, with competition heating up, Live had to continue pushing the envelope and innovating, because all it might take for their player base to jump ship would be one big mishap. Luckily for EA, NBA Live 05 was a classic. Even today, NBA Live 2005 is considered to be the greatest NBA Live ever made. While some people might argue for another game in the series, the overwhelming consensus is that Live 05 was the peak of the series. Live 05 added the All-Star Weekend, with the dunk contest, three-point shootout, and actual All-Star game. Franchise mode got major upgrades, now labeled Dynasty mode, and the gameplay took steps forward as well, resulting in one of the greatest basketball games of all time. The game wasn't perfect, but it was really good. But then, after the release of Live 05, something happened. In late 2004, EA and the NFL signed an exclusive rights agreement, meaning EA was the only company allowed to make NFL games. This essentially killed off NFL 2K, shifting 2K's focus almost exclusively towards their NBA game. Electronic Arts now had the pressure of making the exclusive NFL game, as well as FIFA, MVP Baseball, NASCAR, NHL, and of course NBA Live. 2K, on the other hand, only had to focus on their baseball, hockey, and basketball games, with almost their entire dev team being dedicated to NBA 2K. With NFL 2K out of the picture, NBA 2K, already a great series on the rise, was only going to get better, while NBA Live was going to get less attention. With a new console generation coming, NBA Live's future wasn't looking great. Not only that, but 2K had released all their sports games at just $20 that year, so the player base of NBA 2K rose exponentially. The pressure was on EA. NBA Live 06 released on the Xbox 360 as the first NBA Live game on the next generation of consoles. However, NBA Live 06 was bad. While 06 was pretty good on the previous generation of consoles, it was clear what direction the series was heading towards. I made a video on Madden 06's development and how the game was awful on 360 but great on PS2. The same can be said for NBA Live. The only difference was that NBA Live had competition. If you sold your PS2 or Xbox 4 and Xbox 360 and you got NBA Live 06, you would have been incredibly disappointed, and you likely would have jumped ship and bought NBA 2K6. NBA 2K6 released on the 360 as well, and while the game wasn't anything crazy, 2K was able to port over most of their game from the previous generation of consoles and build upon that foundation, while Live started completely fresh. This was the first year that NBA 2K was objectively better than NBA Live. NBA Live 06 was pretty, as the HD graphics looked great at the time, but that's about all the game had going for it. Frame rate issues, awkward animations, and many features were just lost. After years of upgrading and innovating the franchise mode, it was completely dropped in the next-gen version of Live 06. It was still in the previous gen version and still very good, but it was only a matter of time before EA stopped developing for the older systems. Live 06 was a sign of things to come, and the beginning of the end for NBA Live's reign of success. Unfortunately for NBA Live fans, Live 07 was somehow even worse. Expectations were high, as NBA Live 05 was great, and after a down year with Live 06, the series had to improve, right? The graphics looked great on next gen, so all they had to do was improve the gameplay, somehow. NBA Live 07 was not only a bad game on 360 and PS3, but it was also a bad game on the PS2. How did they mess that up? Live 07 brought back the franchise mode as well as other requested features such as the dunk contest, but they were straight ports from the PS2 version. The dunks were identical, the exact same animations with no change. Gameplay was neglected despite being the biggest issue with 06, and even got worse in some areas. This was the game that showed live players that EA didn't care about their once beloved basketball franchise. The franchise that helped build EA Sports from the ground up back in 1989 was now pushed to the back burner. And for what? Madden and FIFA weren't even good games on the next-gen consoles at this point in time. It was a kick to the stomach. Of course, 2K continued to push the envelope and took on the role that formerly belonged to NBA Live. Live sales were dropping, but the game was still selling well based on name recognition. EA shifted their focus towards maintaining those numbers rather than producing an actual good game. Instead of fixing the core issues of NBA Live, EA tried to add cool back-the-box features to help advertise the game. Sound familiar? NBA 2K was quickly becoming the NBA game of choice for players and critics. NBA Live 08 and 09 were better, but still not anything great or even good, while NBA 2K kept improving and was becoming a fantastic series. It was clear that while EA was trying to beat 2K in sales through marketing, 2K was simply focused on making the best basketball game they could. The people in charge of 2K were making the game from a place of love for the sport, while EA seemed like they didn't care about anything but numbers. In 2009, something amazing happened for EA. Mike Wang, a former 2K employee who was one of the main reasons NBA 2K was taking off, left 2K to join EA and help develop NBA Live 10. On why Wang left 2K, he said, "I was looking at where NBA Live was, and I felt like they were behind us in a lot of ways. I was also looking at my own team and thinking, there's some things I wish we could do differently. We could be different in some ways. My twisted thinking was, if I could go to EA and I could shore up gameplay, then maybe there'd be this really heated rivalry between 2K and Live again, and it would push the basketball genre forward." Wang was clearly a difference maker. NBA Live 10 was actually really good. No longer could you hold sprint and dunk every possession. AI was vastly improved, animations were improved, presentation was improved, and the game was a huge success. The Live versus 2K debate was real. A notable addition to Live 10 was the dynamic DNA features, which allowed players to play NBA games throughout the season with real player stats, lineups, and more, immersing players into the NBA season. Mike Wang was the hero NBA Live fans deserved, and he was here to stay. The future of NBA Live was looking up, and there was now fierce competition between NBA Live and 2K. This is the part where I tell you that NBA Live 10 was the last NBA Live game until Live 14. Mike Wang left EA right after the release of NBA Live 10, and he went back to 2K. This was huge news at the time, almost as big as a major coach leaving his new team for his former team. 2K fans were delighted by the news, while Live fans were not happy to say the least. However, NBA Live 10 was pretty good, so how badly could EA mess this up? Really badly, it turns out. It's almost impressive how badly EA screwed up. They killed NBA Live. They killed it. They decided to change the name of NBA Live 11 to NBA Elite 11 and screwed up so bad that they thought it would be smarter to go right back to NBA Live for next year. What exactly happened? So Mike Wang left, went back to 2K, and helped them create arguably the greatest NBA game ever made, NBA 2K11. EA now had the pressure of trying to improve upon their first good game in a while, Live 10, without Mike Wang. Instead of building upon what Wang created and gradually improving like 2K had been since the Dreamcast, EA did what EA always does and decided to throw away what worked and try something brand new from scratch. First, the name change. Longtime NBA Live fans were unhappy. What was wrong with the name Live? It was iconic. And why did Mike Wang leave? What is EA doing? The name change wasn't even close to the worst part of all of this. They completely redesigned the controls. Gone were the days of pressing buttons to pass or shoot. Now everything was analog, sticks, triggers. How do you even do anything in this game? Passing the ball, shooting the ball, normally easy things, became tedious and impossible for new players. The game released a demo for people to try before release, and it became infamous. One YouTuber named Mr. Lux released a video of a glitch where Andrew Bynum T-poses at center court. It was labeled the Bynum Jesus glitch. Another glitch had Luol Deng draining any shot from a certain part of the court. Besides that, the game was a complete mess, so much so that EA didn't even release it. It was delayed and then cancelled. Live 10 got roster updates instead. All this while 2K dropped their best game to date. At Live's peak, the game was fun and easy to play. Anyone could pick up a controller and start using their favorite players. Maybe that's why EA changed the name to NBA Elite, because it no longer was NBA Live. They had no idea what made Live great in the first place. It was all about marketing and had nothing to do with releasing a good basketball game. EA noticed that NBA 2K10 sold more copies than NBA Live 10, so they hit the panic button. Why build on NBA Live 10 if it didn't sell as well? We need to do something drastic. EA failed to realize that in their attempt to gain new players, they lost their core loyal player base. Those that stuck with EA through Live 06 through 09, what were thought to have been the dark ages, were punished. If 2K just released what many are calling the greatest basketball game of all time, with Michael Jordan on the cover, what am I doing here? Reading news about NBA Elite 11. I'm gonna go play that. Players jumped ship and EA just watched. Some stayed around though. When EA announced the cancellation of Elite 11, these fans waited patiently for the next game, holding out hope that the franchise would soon return to its glory days. A year went by. No NBA Elite 12. NBA 2K12 dropped, however, and it was another amazing game. NBA Live fans were disappearing by the second. So of course, when it was announced that EA was working on NBA Live 13, hardcore fans of the series were excited. They brought back the name Live. EA claimed that Live 13 would focus on being an all-new experience that captures on the future of basketball. No one knew what that meant, but it sounded cool. Unfortunately, EA ended up canceling Live 13 due to the game's development being a disappointment. EA said that next year's game would have a huge focus on quality, as that would be their main goal. And just like that, it had been 3 years since the last NBA Live game. NBA 2K13 released, however, and was another great installment. And then EA actually did it. They released NBA Live 14 in 2013. Finally, NBA Live was back. NBA 2K14 was another great game, so hopefully Live 14 was too, allowing basketball fans to have 2 good competing games in the market. Unfortunately, NBA Live 14 was really bad. It was a glorified demo, a hollow shell of what was once a great franchise. Player models were atrocious. You'd be better off playing Live 10, massive clipping problems, ugly animations, nothing to do in the game, it was a mess. The Dynasty mode was so bad that you could trade Prime KD straight up for Darren Williams. In the Game Informer review of the game, writer Matt Burtz claimed that in his Dynasty mode, the Hawks won the title, led by Martell Webster. There was no logic to the game. It had a mode called Rising Star, which was EA's attempt at creating a My Player type of mode, but it was terrible. The game was as bad as everyone thought Elite 11 would have been if it released, but it was worse because EA took over 3 years to make the game. People were waiting this long, and for what? NBA Live 15 and 16 were more of the same, critically panned, and nothing worth playing. This was while 2K was in its prime, with 2K16 being another entry that many would call one of the greatest 2K games ever made. The trailers for NBA Live looked promising, and many players who loved NBA Live when they were younger were curious, hoping, wishing the series would return to being somewhat respectable. Live was cancelled yet again, with NBA Live 17 not releasing. It was pretty much over for Live at this point. Live 18 released several days before NBA 2K18, and for $20 less too. The game introduced a new career mode where you could take a player through the streets or the league, and it got much better reviews than any Live game had since Live 10. Live 19 released the next year, and it was also a good improving game. However, it was too little too late. The games weren't good enough to sway too many people over from 2K, and Live had become a meme. Their brand was tarnished. Live 18 and 19 were not bad games at all. They even do a few things better than NBA 2K does. They started innovating again, being the first game to offer the WNBA, and still the only game that lets you create female players in career mode. But overall, Live is still worse than 2K. They have the same flaws as every other sports game EA makes, and despite not being microtransaction riddled, the core game just isn't there. And even if it was, NBA Live's brand is so tarnished that it likely would never be able to beat 2K. While 2K is getting worse in many areas, Live still hasn't gotten to their level. But for the future of basketball video games and based on the direction 2K is trending, NBA Live needs to get it together. 18 and 19 have promise. And now the Live team is taking another hiatus to work on the core game. They have to come out with a good product next time around, or else it's over, if it isn't already. It's no surprise that NBA 2K is so intertwined with popular culture. The only people playing NBA Live these days are longtime fans of the series who miss what they once had and are trying to force themselves to like it, or 2K players fed up with microtransactions, cheese, and server issues in modern 2K games. These players always go back to 2K, however, because NBA Live simply isn't real competition. While Live 18 and 19 aren't bad games at all, they're missing a lot. The gameplay, the presentation, the game modes, the attention to detail, it's all lacking. How could it not be after coming from games like Elite 11 and Live 14? 2K, despite having some major issues that recent Live games have been trying to capitalize on, is simply better at its core. Anyone who gives Live a chance will eventually realize this and go back. This might earn me a few dislikes from the extreme 2K haters of the world, or the last few NBA Live hardcore fans, but this is true. No one wants to be caught playing NBA Live, no matter how good the game might be in your eyes. I bought NBA Live 19 at launch. I gave it a shot. I didn't even buy 2K until Christmas time. NBA Live's The One mode is actually pretty good. While the career part of the mode isn't as immersive or in-depth as 2K's, the fact that you start out as a 70 overall and develop quickly is huge. The online aspect in Live is arguably better than 2K's. While there isn't a neighborhood to run around in, or your own apartment, or any of the cool flashy parts of my career, Live has easy to join online matches of 3v3 and 5v5 that are a ton of fun. In 2K, it can take forever to simply get into an online game and park. That's not an issue in Live. And with Live, you can develop a player really fast, meaning you won't and actually can't feel inclined to spend real money to upgrade your player enough to be competitive online. Would NBA Live be microtransaction riddled if it was the only or the top NBA game? No doubt about it. But because it's the underdog, EA is trying to capitalize on 2K's greed by offering a humble, non-pay-to-win game. In fact, if all you do in 2K is play Park, and you're getting fed up with the game, Live might actually be better for you. Unfortunately, however, switching to Live completely is nearly impossible. For one, because Live 20 was delayed, the rosters are outdated, and the game doesn't feature the current rookie class. Another important thing to understand is that no one plays Live. If a friend comes over, they will likely laugh at you if you ask them to play it with you. Because of the overwhelming popularity of 2K, it's going to be unlikely that you'll have any real-life friends that will play with you. And of course, most importantly, Live isn't as good of a basketball game as 2K is. The gameplay, while not being bad, it's not as good. It's leagues better than Live used to be, but it's not close to 2K. It does some things better, but it's not better overall. Beyond gameplay, franchise mode is a joke, and we aren't even going to compare it to My League. Player models look bad, jerseys have mistakes in them, arenas don't change when you give a team city uniforms. Despite having the ESPN license, presentation is really bad. The game simply lacks attention to detail, which is something 2K has nailed year after year. If you want to see why 2K is so far ahead of Live, all you need to do is fire up a game of play now. That said, Live 18 and 19 have proved to be big steps forward for Live. Unfortunately, they suffer from the same core issues as games like Madden, FIFA, and NHL. But Live 19 shows promise. Despite being developed by EA, the Live development team is different. They respond to feedback online. They are really trying to make a good game. They are delaying Live 20 for all the right reasons. The game is not trying to suck the money out of players' wallets, but instead convert the growing number of unhappy 2K players, and maybe even bring back the hardcore fans of NBA Live. At the end of the day, competition is ideal. We should all be rooting for NBA Live, because the better NBA Live is, the better NBA 2K will be. We got NBA 2K11 right after NBA Live 10 gave 2K some real competition. Without competition, games start to stagnate. You see it with Madden, with NHL. We need NBA Live to take the promising parts of 19, improve and expand them, and spend this time working on the core issues of the game. Maybe, just maybe, when Live returns, whenever that may be, it'll be good. We should be rooting for that. If EA releases one more bad basketball game, especially after another break, NBA Live will be dead forever.